Welcome again to the Citizen Mike Show. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Mike Brodinski. Christopher K. Shortell is sharing the screen with me. This is a little, I guess, addendum, a little PS to the final show of the season. So we're going to make this our final show of the season. And we're doing this because I wanted to, ask you some, well, the sort of personal questions about your experience on the council and maybe some advice that you might have for folks that might be considering getting on the council. So let me start this way. Here's our interview, Chris. Here's our interview.
Okay.
So many years from now, you have on your knee your grandson.
Okay.
And you're going over the usual topic, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the question of, well, Granddad, you were a counselor at one time. You're on the Board of Ed at one time. Should I do that? Should I get involved? And so I want you to complete this sentence for me. Grandson, you shouldn't get on the council unless. Now, as everyone knows, this was not rehearsed. We exchange topics. Usually, I don't catch you by surprise, but I wanted to do it that way, this way.
Yeah, you like that.
Don't get on the council unless
you're prepared to compromise, but also prepared to maybe offend and annoy people to get what you need done.
Okay.
I think it's a blend, and I think you're not gonna, you learn pretty quickly. And I'm gonna do what I always do is take you want pithy. I'm gonna go a little longer. I learned, when I first ran for Board of Ed and I saw signs, my signs went up, and it was the first time you see your sign. I don't know for you, driving around town, September of 2013, and I see these Shortell signs. I mean, I designed the sign, I like the sign, but it's, and then you get people, it's the best feeling. They ask you for your sign. It's the best feeling in the world when someone reaches out to you and says, Chris, give me a sign. Then I'm driving around and I'm seeing the signs, and mentally I'm saying, okay, I know who I am. I'm Chris Shortell. I'm a Republican. I have my beliefs. I'm weird. I'm socially conservative and fiscally moderate. And people who have my signs are all over the place. There are people that are the exact opposite of me, who we probably couldn't agree on anything. They have my sign. And this other person has my sign who probably does agree with me. And I'm thinking about all those people like, wow, do they really know what I think? And the realization that the minute I open my mouth and at that point in a candidate forum or in a newspaper article, and certainly when you get into the meetings and the votes, the minute you open your mouth, you're going to annoy half the room, no matter what you say. And so that you're not going to please everybody, and you can't go into it thinking you're going to be, a rock star, that you're going to be, everyone's going to love you. They may love you at first, but there's going to be an issue at some point, and at some point people are going to get someone somewhere is going to get mad, and it's going to happen a lot. So you have to be prepared for that.
Okay, so back to our scene, and your grandson is sitting on your knee, looking to Granddad for advice.
Scary.
And you know what? I'm going to switch genders. Your granddaughter.
Okay.
Is sitting on your knee, and I should have fixed that the first time around with a question. Your granddaughter is sitting on your knee, and she says, Granddad, I know you did it and you were on the Board of Ed, but how do I know that I could be good? How do I know I could be successful? I don't want to fall on my face, Granddad. What qualities do I need to be a good counselor? And you tell her what?
First of all, you are going to fall on your face. We all fall on our faces. And I'm happy to give you, and I know every time I did, and I know things I've said that were wrong, and we can talk through some of them briefly, and I still think about them. But you have to accept the fact that you have to try your best, do your homework, and be true to yourself. And this is something that when I first got into this, and I met Tom Laffin, who's a friend of mine, and Joe Marone, and Tom and Joe and I talked, and we had lots of talks, and I was like, how do you do it? And I was more worried, I don't know that I line up all the way with the Republicans. I'm kind of all over the place. And that's just nationally. Locally, I don't even know what I am. I love the mayor. That's all I am locally. I don't know anything about locally, at the time, not that I don't love the mayor now, but I mean, locally, I was very much a blank slate. I just, voted for the mayor all the time. And they just said, look, we want you to vote for the leadership, because that's you kind of have to if you're going to be on the ticket, but otherwise just be informed and vote your conscience. And I would tell my granddaughter the same thing. And it's something that I talked, I've talked with candidates since have come after me, and I've given them the same advice. I said, at the end of the day, all that matters is when you have a vote or a comment and your head hits the pillow at night. It doesn't matter if you've pleased Mike Brudzinski or Vinnie Cervoni or Vinnie Testa or Sal Menzo or Bill Dickinson. It doesn't matter what they think. What matters is, can you live with yourself? Can you justify what your position? And that's the most important thing that you have to be, I believe. And if you can do that, then you've succeeded. So
I want to boil this down into more pithy bullet points.
Sorry.
The qualities, granddaughter, the qualities that you will need are as follows.
Intellectual curiosity and the willingness to follow that curiosity wherever it leads you, even if it's against the status quo, against your own party, against what everyone else wants. That's what I would say. Be true to yourself.
Got it. So when you decided to run for council, why did you do it? And before you answer that, I'm going to give you some time to think.
Yeah.
Okay? Because this question usually comes up in candidate forums, a hypothetical candidate, Mary Smith. Why did you decide, why are you running for council now for the first time? And Mary Smith says always, I want to give back to my community. And I said, oh God, okay. Everyone wants to get back to their community. So that's fine. That doesn't distinguish you from your competitor there. So excluding that feeling that you want to give back to your community, take that off the table.
I'm going to get a little personal here. It was a hard, the time I had to make the decision was hard because my mother had just died. And I was going through, it was May of 2015. And so that's when you start to, the ticket starts to take shape, and Christine Mansfield and then Bob Parisi both announced they weren't running. I think Christine was a shock. I think Bob, we kind of knew. Bob, I think had given indications it was his last term. I think Cervoni had taken over his chair. Christine was kind of a shock because she had just kind of burst on the scene. It was her first term. She'd been on the Board of Ed. So there were two spots on the council. The party, it was me and Marone were kind of the next up in line. We were on the Board of Ed. Joe had, the way I looked at it, Joe had seniority on me. Joe had been on the Board of Ed for, I don't know how many years, 6 years at that point. So, it was kind of floated around. Well, we were kind of the logical people. And I think, my thought was, Joe was kind of first in line, and then I was sort of next. And so when Christine's spot opened up, why did I run? I ran because I knew that I wanted to be on the council someday. Truly, I was ready to run for Board of Ed again. I was perfectly content to be on the Board of Ed again. I love the Board of Ed. Those 2 years, especially the first year, it was probably my favorite year of this whole journey. But I didn't know when I know these spots don't open up, and I felt like I tend to get bored at work. I've had every 4 or 5 years I switch jobs at work, so I felt like the Board of Ed thing was going to run its course at some point, and I'd want to move on to the council. So now let me get back. I'm not really answering your question. Okay, fine. That's why I ran then. But why did I want to be on the council? Mike, I wanted to give back to my community. Okay. No, I
knew it.
Yeah, you knew it. Well, the thing is, though, I didn't do anything. Like, I wasn't involved in anything before this. I was on the Cemetery Association board for 2 years because Jerry Farrell, my Jr., my cousin, asked me as a favor, will you be on the cemetery board? And I said, sure. It's one meeting a year. And ironically, that summer, that I ended up becoming the secretary of which was a whole nother story. But I wasn't involved. You know, we had kids. We had kids starting in 09. We had Ryan in 09 and Zach in 2011. But I had no, as I would call it, extracurriculars. You know, I was sort of just doing my job at work, and we're starting a family, and I felt like I wanted to do something. I didn't know what. And you look around town, there were so many ways to give back. You know, you could be, I mean, I was going to say Maria Harlow, that's her job. That's her full-time job, you know, with SCOW and now United Way. But you look at somebody, you know, Steve Knight is always, you know, he's retired, but he's always doing stuff with Masters Mana and with different organizations, you know, Wallingford Center Inc. And you go down the line, Mary Ellen Eccles with the theater, and all these people do these things in their free time. I had nothing, I wasn't doing anything. And I felt like it was something I could do to quote unquote give back. And I also felt like I thought I would win, because I felt like I had we have a big family in town, or we used to, and my parents were kind of well known. So I felt like, you know, I could maybe get on, but I had no agenda. I wasn't an issue. Like, there were people who people who run on issues, whatever the issue was, you know, I the parking lot or this or that. And I wasn't an issue. It's funny, the issues found me later on. I never ran, but I didn't have an axe to grind. I didn't have anything. I was just kind of like, I want to do something different. It seemed like an opportunity. And that's why I don't know. I can't put it any differently from that. And I did feel like if I didn't do it in May of 2015, I didn't know when the next.
Yeah, timing matters in politics. Yeah, absolutely. All right. What did I miss? Anything else before we close this?
I mean, I don't know. It's your interview. I want to ask you questions.
Oh, nuts.
But
go ahead. Give me your best shot.
Well, I'm curious. Why? So you were on the give me, because I don't remember. Like, I remember when you ran for mayor, and I remember you announced I think a year ahead of time. You were the first person to do that, if memory serves. You did a huge door to door. My grandmother had coffee with you or something. One of my grandmothers. They were both living back then. We had an argument about you at the time. I was like, no, you got to vote for Dickinson. And she was like, I like Mike Brzezinski. I didn't know you then. You can't blame me. I didn't know you. I'm sorry.
All right.
But my point is, can you just refresh my memory? And for the millennials out there who watch the show, who may not fully can you give me quickly what was your timeline of service?
So I ran for council for the first time in '99.
Okay.
And got 2 years, was reelected, and then ran for mayor in '03.
I always mix up '03 versus '01. So you ran in '03.
For mayor.
Okay.
So I was off the council '04 and '05.
Okay. And then
I was for 2 more consecutive terms.
Okay. So 8 years total on the council.
Yeah, right.
Okay. But you were in 5 elections. Okay. Okay. Well, let me just go back to 1999. Why did you run?
So here's the sad story.
Oh no.
There's the immediate trigger, and there's the sort of the long-term predisposition.
Okay.
So going back to my formative years and stuff, when I was in high school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I found an old letter that I was asked to write to my mother, what I want to do when I grow up. And I was about 8 or 9 years old. I'm not sure, based on the handwriting. And this will all come together. There's a thread that connects.
I'm okay with long responses, unlike some people.
You better be. So the first one was a doctor, because I had an uncle that was a doctor. Okay. And the second was a teacher, because I liked all my teachers. That's how I reconstructed. And number 3 was a journalist, and I have no idea why that, but there's something that's going on in my little mind. So that brings me up to high school. I had to figure what I wanted to do in college. And through the process of elimination, I became a government major, not a political science major about, how elections are won or lost, the mechanics of pulling, levers. But a government major is basically policy, why government works, why it doesn't work, what's the best, type of government to accomplish good things for the general population. I was a government major. So don't insult me by saying, political science. There's a big difference. Government major is absolutely more philosophical. So I go through college, as a government major, but then what are you going to do? You can't make a living at that. So, I go into the service during the Vietnam buildup, and I had a choice as to how I wanted to steer my military career. And I volunteered for the draft, so it gave me a little leverage. So when the time came for my interview, I said I wanted to go to journalism school. So the field of government and journalism has always been very close to what I always wanted to do. I went to journalism school in the Army, came back, couldn't make a living, didn't want to make a living as a journalist, became a lawyer. Journalism, lawyering, and government are very closely intertwined. Government deals with laws, lawyering deals with laws, and things like that. So that takes me up through, the current times, and probably 1998. I'm not sure. It might have been 1999. I'm sitting in a council meeting with a buddy. I was sort of interested. I was on the Democratic Town Committee at the time, and I hear this debate going on. Gino Zandri, Jason's father, was up on the stage. I think at the time the council might have been 5-4 Democrat. I don't know. I think it was closely divided. And Gino Zandri was all alone in this debate with the mayor as to why the town was building a surplus so high. And to defend himself, the mayor was, trying to fight off Gino. No one was coming to Gino's defense. No one seemed to be into this discussion at all, but it's very important to Gino Zandri about the finances of the town. And I'm listening to this sort of fascinated. And the mayor says to Gino, surplus, I don't even know what a surplus is. And he handed the microphone to the then comptroller, who's not Jim Bowes. And he says, here, do you know what a surplus is, to the comptroller? And the comptroller says, I don't know what a surplus is. And I watched the faces of the council to see if they were horrified. There should have been 9 councilors that were horrified at this, but none were, not even the Democrats. They weren't horrified. They let it go. Gino, went off the stage in defeat. And I said, this stinks. We've got to do better than this. And I decided at that point in time, I was going to run for council. And that's how it started.
It's, okay, this is fascinating. So 2 things.
Yeah.
Reverse order, but this ties to something you said, and I guess it's the last show, even though we're doing this. You talked about Republicans nationally, the pro-business party, financial hawks. So that's not really in Wallingford. I mean, it's a different, it's an alternate reality in Wallingford when I'm just going to throw names out, but when Larry Morgenstein comes to the microphone and sounds more like 1999 George W. Bush running for president, when he talks about money, the people's money, or similar to what you're talking about, then the Republicans in town sound, who are guarding it, furiously guarding it. So I think that's a tie-in there. Let me clarify for me, you volunteered for the draft. So you're saying, I don't understand, the Army, what, they paid for journalism school, or were you going to be a correspondent, like Al Gore, like a correspondent for the Army?
I was an Army journalist.
Okay,
I went to a public information school at Fort Benjamin Harris for 3 months or something, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I became what they call an information specialist. Depending on what your duty assignment is, you're in that field. But part of that was writing stories, hometown press releases, tape recorded interviews, and stuff like that.
Okay. So I have an article, but I don't have it. I was saving it and I blew it because it's somewhere on my desktop. It was an article about, you know how they always run the article every election about how much money is raised. And I don't recall, it was one of your council years. It wasn't the mayoral run, but you you didn't raise, I think you put a lot of your money into the election. I think the article called out, I mean, it was a lot of money you put in. I don't think it was the mayoral one though. Does that ring a bell?
No, that's right. I think the first time I ran, I spent a lot of money.
Looking just in terms of your campaigning, you did a lot of, what did you do? A lot of door to door? Did you do mailer as a council candidate? What was your, what was your approach? Did you feel, I mean, because I mean, did you feel you already had a name?
No, so let me save you some time. So I came to an election, to the first election with no base, no large Christmas card list, no network. So in order to break in, you have to do something extraordinary, or else you're not a serious candidate. And I was going to be a serious candidate, so I had to do something extraordinary. And I think that first year I knocked on 2,400 doors, and that was before door knocking became popular. I think I was the only one knocking on doors at that point. Coincidentally with that, I had to put some ads in and spend money that way, and just sort of develop my own network, and that all came together. I won the election. I wasn't last. I think I might have been 7th or 6th or kind of something like that. But I had to get some name recognition from scratch, which is not that easy to do.
Well, we joked about this. What do you call the counselor that finished ninth? Do you call him or her a counselor?
That's right. That's right.
So at what point you have, well, you're sort of like the Grover Cleveland of the council with your two blocks of time here on the council. So when during that first block, 99 to 03, were you always going to run for mayor, or what were you thinking? Were you, where was your mind?
Here's what I was thinking. During the early part of my second term on the council, I got the lay of the land as to how things work, and I deeply understood how impotent and feckless the council was. How nothing really can be accomplished, especially as a backbencher. And I saw a lot of things that absolutely made no sense, that were ineffective, that were inefficient, that were just bad. I just saw a lot of things that shouldn't be the way they are, but they were ingrained in the culture of Wallingford politics, and they still are. Not much has changed in that regard. And so I made up my mind, I'm going either up or out. This is not worthy, not a worthy endeavor. Either I can make an impact, or I'm going to find something else to do. So Jim Babako was on the council at the time. We had a discussion. I said, Jim, I'm going to run if you're not, or if you want to run first, you go ahead. And he said, Mike, you run, and I'll take it from there. And so I did. Of course, I lost. Foregone conclusion, I was going to lose. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
the ultimatum to myself was either up or out, and I had no regrets in making that decision that way.
Mm-hmm. And I think he ran in that three-way race with Lucille Trzynski.
He ran twice. I think he ran twice.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you say you knew you were going to lose.
Yeah.
But you did really, you polled like 41, 42%. You did better.
It was a good campaign. We had a good result. Yeah.
You did better than, I mean, we talked about, Jared Liu also, he did poll similar numbers to you, I think. He was in that ballpark.
Well, I don't want to get in the competition.
No, I'm not. My point, I don't want to get into, I know, I'm not trying to, all I'm saying is though, you did better until Jared recently. You had sort of been the post Peter Gouveia benchmark. I don't know that anybody after Peter Gouveia's 2 near misses did it anywhere near what you did. In my recollection, it was usually 2-1 was the margin of victory before you and after you.
Yeah, under the circumstances, I was proud of the result, but I was also under no illusions that I wasn't going to win. Well, but it's just a matter of I just can't do this anymore in this capacity.
So I guess 2 questions then. Yeah. Like, why didn't you run again
for mayor?
Yeah.
Well, when the voters decisively say we want to stick with Mayor Dickinson, it's an exercise in futility. It would have been.
Okay. Been. You were, because I look across the I think Vinny Testa ran twice. Now he ran twice very far apart.
Yeah.
He ran in 97 and he ran in, and I want to share with the viewers, I have a memento from Vinny Testa's first mayoral campaign. Vinny, if you're watching, it is his rulers he gave, magnetic ruler he gave out.
Okay.
So yeah. Anyway, that's from '97. But I know he ran twice. I guess Jason's only run once.
I think that's right.
Gino ran maybe once or twice. I don't remember. I don't know. It felt like I guess in my head it felt like people kind of always ran. I know Jared ran twice. I don't know. I see your point. I see your point about, is it futility? So okay, so up or out. So then you came back.
Yeah.
So what you changed your mind? You changed your mind then, or no? Why did you come back?
I changed my mind because I thought we had the Democrats had a fighting chance to take the majority.
Yep.
And I'd never been in the majority before.
Okay, that was a question. So 99 to 03, you were not in the majority.
Seeing an opening, maybe something could be done, some reforms could be made in the majority. So I think the first time, the first election cycle after my hiatus didn't take the majority, but the second time we did. And I ended up as chairman of the town council. Spent 2 years of that, and I said, you know what? It's up or out, but I'm out. Because even as
Fair, it didn't matter.
We did some things, but
So I'm looking, it feels like, you can correct me, that second term, or those two terms after, were more in terms of just I think there was the first referendum was somewhere in there. There was charter revision in there. There was a lot going on in 05 to 09, if memory serves. I don't remember, again, my political memory, 99 to 03, I was sort of doing different things. I was in my 20s, into late 20s. So I wasn't really paying attention. I was paying more attention 05 to 09, but anything stand out? Anything you would, point to as a victory? Anything you wish you could do over from, I guess, from any?
No victories, no defeats. I don't like to look at it that way. I mean, I did what I did because at the time it seemed like the right thing to do, and it still does. But there are some couple of benchmarks that went on. When I was chairman, Choate wanted to take the old Durham Road, and the mayor wanted to give it to him, and free of charge. And I was appalled. I was just appalled at that. The mayor and I crossed swords on that, and eventually it got to we're able to fashion the issue. Either Choate was going to pay dearly for that road or wasn't going to get it, and that's how it worked out. And Choate eventually walked away, and I'm glad they did, because today, and I have a feeling that if I wasn't there, Choate would have Old Durham Road. People would say, good, who wants it? Well, that was the debate then. But just at the time, the argument was, let them have it. It's actually a savings for the town of Wallingford if we give Choate Old Durham Road. As they say, I was the chief trustee of the public assets. This made no sense to me, and I thought it was an abuse. So I blocked everything I could do. I blocked it. It ended up being blocked. The other thing was the Wood and Kaplan. The mayor had it all worked out that the Wood and Kaplan property would be turned over to the hand-put developer under quite favorable terms. And again, this was behind closed doors. I was appalled at the lack of transparency and just the methods and means and methods used. I didn't like the deal in retrospect. Who knows what would have happened? But I think the developer who was being entertained as a developer of choice was overpromising. And that deal did not go through. I had a material impact on that decision too. And then finally, I'm not going to say finally, I'm not going to make a real long list, but we had an influence on kicking out the old Ethics Commission, which I said publicly, and I'll say again privately, had too many of the mayor's cronies on there. And it didn't give the appearance of an objective ethics commission. And one or more of them were not reappointed when they came up because of that cronyism.
You mentioned, the Woody Kaplan thing.
Yeah.
It strikes me, and I've always sort of, as somebody who works in marketing, wrestled with the cognitive dissonance between a mayor who is pretty much unbeatable himself, and yet 5 years apart, two referenda, he lost. And so when it was just an issue, a single issue, and I've always tried to sort of think where was it, with the referenda, did the opposition just do a better job communicating? Was there just more of a organization, since they occurred, because there had to be an organized effort to even get it that far? Did a pro parking lot, side never really build up steam? It just, that sort of fascinates. Do you have a thought on that, or
Woody Kaplan.
either one? I mean, you mentioned Woody Kaplan, you could do that, or Simpson Court. I mean, again, my caveman view is that these were, those were the only defeats the mayor suffered.
I stayed out of the Simpson Court pretty much. We had
Okay.
the Mike show going. I pretty much stayed out of that. The Woody Kaplan one I did have something to do with, but I think time has erased, my memory on some of the details. But
Yeah.
I don't think it was that hard to fashion a coherent argument against the deal. I think the mayor did the opponents of that parking lot a lot of favors, just the way it was all structured. So I think there are a lot of people involved. I had something to do with the opposition, but I had a bully pulpit on the council. And I think many times I was the only one speaking out against the deal, which, provided some basis for others more active in the referendum to use some of the things that I said as an argument to the voters.
Yep.
At least that's how but I wasn't an organizer of the referendum. I was on the council.
No, understood. I was just thinking almost from a political science perspective, why, those two outcomes, just how it worked out. So the election, let me just get these numbers right. You would have you ran in the fall of 2005 and you ran in the fall of 2007. And then, so you would have left the council as of early January 2009.
No, 2010. So the election was 2007, so I served 2008 and 2009.
Yep. Okay.
End of 2009, I was done.
Got it. So, all right. So what I'm getting at is, viewers will know, before COVID, the Citizen Mike show had an opening, and it says since 2010. So you leave the council. So how long? Tell me what happens. You leave the council January of 2010. They swear in a new council. When does the Citizen Mike show start? Is it May? I don't remember. May, September. How long does it take? What went through your head? What was happening?
Yeah, it was the fall of 2010. So somewhere along the line, in the course of my council duties, charter revision came up. And I remember, maybe I was still in the council, maybe I wasn't, but I remember hosting a forum on charter revision at WPAA. And I was sort of a moderator. I didn't take an advocacy role. And I vaguely remember that sitting on my right was Jeff Knickerbocker. He was, I think, chairman of the Charter Revision Commission. It might have been Steve Knight, I'm not sure. On the other, we just went through the charter revision very matter-of-factly, issue by issue, pros and cons, things like that. Put that aside, time passed, and the election season of 2010 comes up. And I get a call, and this is how I remember it, I get a call from WPA Susan Huizenga saying that there's some statewide candidates that want to go on WPAA to promote their elections, but a decision was made that they should not just be able to drop DVDs off and have WPAA just record their campaign promotions. WPAA preferred that someone interview them. Would I be interested? So I said, hey, I'll give that a try. So we gave it a try. We interviewed the future Attorney General, George
Jepsen.
We interviewed Denise Merrill and a couple of others. And it was pretty interesting. I mean, that fused my background in government with my journalism interest, with my government interest. Those interviews and some others that we had went pretty well. We just decided to keep it going.
That I did not know that. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So let me get into your head then. So you do that in the state cycle in the fall of 2010. So now, did you just keep going weekly into 2011, or was there a pause?
Yeah, I don't know if it was weekly or every other week at that point. I bet it was every other week, but I'm not really sure. And I think it was in 2011 that Ralph and I had coffee at a McDonald's and he came on as co-host.
And that's so now, what was it like covering that election in 11? So now, I mean, it was your second election kind of as a civilian, but now you have the show. So like you're, was it hard because now you're in a different position? Did you're obviously you're a Democrat, but your job is, you're trying to just sort of ask tough questions and give the public insight into all these people, Republicans, Democrats. Did you find, I guess I have two questions. Was it hard because now you had to sort of look at both sides, and not hard to be equal, but like, did anybody get mad at you? Did any Democrats say, why did you ask that Democrat, that tough question? And I have another, and then my second question is more, as you did the stuff that drove you nuts on the council drive you even more nuts now that you don't even have the vote or the bully pulpit anymore to speak against it? So you pick the question. I know it's a lot. Those are two huge questions.
You know, my experience as a lawyer make a heck of a lot easier to interview someone because I've probably taken 1,000 or more depositions in my career, which is nothing but question and answers to try to ferret out the truth.
Yep.
And it's like muscle memory. I just slid right into that. Of all the people that we had on, maybe there's one person that I can recall. I think they got a raw deal, but I think my practice because it's been in force for a long time. When a guest comes on the show, they know generally speaking what the topics are. I think that's always been the case.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's no grounds for anyone to say I was ambushed. The philosophy was, if you're prepared, if you have your arms around the issue, arms around arms around the facts, if you give a sincere answer, you'll have no trouble with me. And that's, still what's going on. So.
Okay, fair. I think that is fair. I always felt that way. And I'll say this again. I said it before. I think I said it earlier in the season. It was Ralph, where you would prep, and I think you would prep the guest so well. And I remember coming in, I was on I was on a few times with Ralph when Ralph was on, and Ralph was, look, I love Ralph. Ralph's great. Ralph knew my dad, and when he covered the bank and I have nothing. Ralph was great. I love the Record Journal. Ralph would throw these, you would give me the question, we would go back and forth, and Ralph would just come in with some grenade, like, well, Chris, do you think the mayor, keeps dead bodies in his basement? Like, geez, Ralph, I don't, so it's just.
I just want to clarify something. It was never a scripted show. I mean, even though guests knew what the topics were, I don't know what their answers are going to be.
Right. No. Understood.
If they say something that is kind of off, then we'll try to call them on it, Republican or Democrat.
Right. So let's go back to my second question.
Yeah.
And you could really so now you have the show going on. You have to pay attention. Like you have to read. Now, I mean, like you really have to pay. And I'll give an example from my limited experience being co-host. I am not up on state issues generally. I'm just not. It's not something I follow. I know I'm a bad citizen, I guess. So we had Mary Mashitsky on the show almost a year ago to the day. I think it was December. You have no idea all the stuff I was reading to just so I could, if I, for the few questions I asked her, so I could be up. And it was, you gave me the topics and Mary, we'd emailed, so I knew where we were gonna go. But I mean, that prep for me, and there was another show like that. I think it was with Rick Hendershot. We did the utilities, and that's Joe Marone and I have a joke because Joe Marone knows all that stuff, and I joked like the public utility, the electric division thing for me, like how we do power, and like it's just a gap for me. Like people have explained it, I get it now, I guess, after like all these years. So that was one where I was like reading stuff, and so I guess my question more, not that you didn't have that learning curve, but just the investment, your emotional and mental investment into reading minutes and understanding what's going on, watching these meetings, maybe going to these meetings. I don't know what you were doing. If you were watching, you have all these clips you play. How do you do it and not go out of your mind? Because you said you were up or out, but now you're not out. You're back in.
But I have another hat. I have another hat that
Okay.
First of all, over time doing this, over the years doing this, and also through my experience as a lawyer, one of the skills is quickly separating the unimportant from the important, the wheat from the chaff. So you can flip through minutes and say nonsense, 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 but you could, come to the core of something, and you don't have to read it all of it carefully, word for word. And some of that comes from looking for a certain point, and that can go fairly quickly. Uh, I would also say that if you're not interested in government, you shouldn't do the show, shouldn't be on the show, you shouldn't be on the council. If government bores you, and as you said in your segment of this interview, if you don't like to be trained up, especially on the council, because a variety of issues come up, if you just don't like to be trained up, if you don't have the time, then don't do the work. So I've always, like you, enjoyed being trained up on a topic that I know nothing about. And the journalism part comes in handy, because part of journalism is making a complicated issue seem simple. And the key to lawyering is keeping it simple for the jury. And so all of this comes to bear, and I try to understand it myself by keeping it simple for myself. And it, for what we do, it seems to, go okay.
Okay, but that doesn't. I get the technique and how you do it, and you say, and you drill down. But I still let me just let me boil it down.
Yeah.
In about 392 days, I will no longer be a counselor.
Right.
The next meeting after that, do you think I'm going to watch the next meeting after that? Spoiler alert, I'm not watching the next meeting after that. So my point is, and the meeting after that, am I going to tune in? No, like I need to how do you stay in?
Let me put it this way.
Okay.
After I was off the council 2010, I took a year off.
Okay.
My wife and I did a ton of traveling, went to all kinds of places, New Zealand, Hawaii. We just traveled to get a complete change of scene. And I purged myself of all the stuff that I wanted to get away from. But remember, I'm hardwired for what this show does. So it has become a serious hobby. So I'm not going to walk away from my early interest and long-term interest in journalism, government, law, public policy. Just not going to walk away from that anyway. I'm not going to walk away from skiing or kayaking or hiking or swimming. I'm not going to walk away from that either. So this is a hobby that I choose to spend time on. It's not your hobby though, but it is mine. So I don't expect you necessarily to come back in the next 10 years, but on the 11th year, I'll be knocking on your door.
11 years. Oh man. Well, let's see, at that point, Zach will be 21, Ryan will be 23.
Timing's about right.
Yeah, no, it's about right for me to be on a beach in Chatham. That's
got to get that out of the way now, the next 10 years.
Yeah, well, I need money to get that. I want to say, you've mentioned several times your background as a lawyer, and I make a lot of jokes about lawyers on the council, because I think lawyer jokes are funny. But I look at, I do think when I look at Vinny Cervoni, I look at Craig Fishbein, I look at Jamie Hine, planning and zoning, or the mayor. The mayor is a lawyer. I think there is an advantage, an inherent advantage when you come into this role, because of everything you just said. The mound of information that's thrown at you, and to be able to sift through it and really hone in on what's important, or maybe not, maybe to actually go through it when you don't know what's important and ferret it out if you don't know what you're looking for. And I think it's I do think that like people like Vinny and Craig and someone like Jamie have a huge advantage because of their profession versus me, who's like a marketing guy, jack of all trades. It's work. It's more work for me.
Yes, it would be two things. One of the skills of lawyering is spotting issues, not necessarily knowing the answer, but spotting an issue. Reading something and say, it doesn't quite make sense, or the facts aren't there to support that.
Right.
So, spotting the issue, not necessarily knowing the answer, but you spot the issue and then you research the answer. Mm-hmm. And so good lawyers, they know a lot of laws, but they know how to find the law. And so that matters a lot.
It's fascinating to me though that good lawyers can also disagree.
Well, sure.
And that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, I could put you, Janice Small, Craig Fishbein, and Vinnie Cervoni in a room and throw some issues in there and things that have happened, and you may come back with me with 3 different.
Well, wait, though.
Uh,
But wait, um,
do you not want to go in that room?
no, I'm going there.
Okay.
I'm going there. Lawyers can use their skills for a partisan purpose.
Okay.
They're used to representing clients and interests. They get paid $50,000, making the number up, to make a case for a certain client who has a certain interest. That may not be the lawyer's personal view. But sometimes, a lawyer uses his skills for his own personal interest, for his own political view. Fair point. But the public and other counselors, members of government, should not confuse a lawyer, a counselor, or a lawyer politician who gives a legal opinion as the same opinion he knows a judge would give. So a lawyer who is a politician may give an answer to the press, but he wouldn't dare give the same answer to the bar examining committee because he'd flunked the bar, knowing that the answer he gave doesn't square with the law or the facts.
Right.
So we've got to be very careful.
All right. I get that. Let's do some rapid fire. I know we're looking at the clock here. So I can see you looking at the clock. All right. 10 years of the show. Any best moment, best guest, or best thing? Did you feel best issue maybe you influenced? Is there one that stands out?
I really don't want to. First of all, I don't think any one thing stands out. It's more of a. I don't see it as victories or defeats or anything like that. It's sort of week to week grind, which you're very familiar with. Do the best show you can, in the week that you're doing it. Try to bring as much new information to the public as you can, bring context that hasn't been out there. And then after that, it's an opinion show. So just week in, week out, just do the best you can with what you have. And that's enough of a success or a victory. And some shows are better than others too.
All right. Okay. No, well, yeah, I hear you. Okay. You have Mayor Dickinson in a room. He's going to listen to you. You get 2 things. You're going to tell him the thing he does best. And then you're going to give him the biggest opportunity he could do differently to make the town better that he's not doing. And he's going to listen to you. He's going to take your praise and he's going to take your constructive criticism. What do you say?
The first part was tell him what he does best.
Yes. Don't change this. Don't change what this thing that you're doing, whatever it's, a policy, a style, whatever, anything.
I don't have an answer to that.
Okay.
Because the word best is sort of challenging. So what was the second part of the question?
Well, see, I think what could you do better? Opportunity for improvement, constructive.
He could do better. Yeah, this goes against his personality, but I think what's missing from Mayor Dickinson is exemplified by what he did with respect to communicating about COVID. I think the Record Journal offered him an interview to go on camera, to go on microphone, to sort of explain COVID to the town of Wallingford at the same time that other chief executives and other leaders across the country were doing that. And Mayor Dickinson declined and had Chairman Vince Cervoni do that in his place. Chairman Cervoni did a real good job. But that's a mayoral skill that a chief executive cannot do without. The mayor should have said, gosh, Record Journal, thank you. This is really what I really wanted to do, is in his own words, in his own sincere way, be a leader and explain to the voters of Wallingford about what the town was going through. He could not do that, or he did not want to do that, or both. So he is just not a skilled communicator on issues where his sincerity comes through. Whenever he talks, it seems to be dogmatic. It seems to be pre-programmed, and that's a problem.
Yeah, I think I would agree with I think the communication thing is an issue. I think he's an excellent communicator when he wants to be. And I think it depends on the issue. And I think that
When he comes out in a suit of armor or some uniform, I just turned off. I don't. That's
yeah, no, I don't. But I'm not. No, I'm going to give it a quick example of. We had somebody question a year ago. I think it was the tax exemption that Masonic Hair gets Ashler Village, that issue. And a citizen came to not someone that usually comes to our meetings, and kind of gave him a hard time about it, and then accused him of laughing at her or something. And he gave what I thought in 3 minutes. Now, whether you agree with it or not, he gave a summary of the history of that tax exemption, why it is what it is, why he's for it. And it was, I sat there like, why don't you always talk like this? Like, I was like, yeah, what he said. And I agree with you on the COVID stuff. It was disappointing. Frankly, I don't want to relitigate all that, but I think, yeah. So, okay. Okay. I'll answer the first part. I do think that his inclination to never spend money is a good thing. I think that's a good thing in general. I know it sometimes hurts, but I do think, if you line up all the stuff, I think it is a good thing to have that mindset some of the time.
Well, I'm not going to let that rest because it's my interview here.
All right.
I don't think he does any better than any other chief executive of any other town. I mean, I think he, on that job, he gets a D or a B minus. I don't think he's any more prudent than anyone else. Sure, you can have examples of bad first selectmen or bad town managers or bad mayors, but I think in general, Wallingford's in the middle of the pack when it comes to taxes raised and taxes spent. Nothing great. He's got a good track record, but it's still just a B. It's not an A minus.
Okay. It's your interview. All right. So let's just pivot. Town council. You have the town council in a room. Same 2 questions.
Yeah.
Biggest town council. You're doing this right. Keep doing this. Town council. This town council. You could do this better.
Well, as I've said on the show to you, this council in the last 3, 4, 5 years has been very passive.
Mhm.
I think that's selling their office short and selling the town short. And an example you brought up on the last show was this parking lot where 9 councilors, if they wanted, had the opportunity to bring this to a head and to sort of orchestrate a decision-making process where the public was involved and alternatives were involved, but no one really wanted to do that. So I find that passivity a real problem for me, but I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I mean, I get really involved. I want people to be active. I want them to be as mentally energetic as they can possibly be. And I just don't see it. So can I stop there?
Yeah, but there's nothing we're doing right.
Oh,
There's nothing we're doing right.
no, it's not that you're doing right or wrong. I mean, you show up, you go to meetings, generally speaking, you follow the instructions that I don't think you've ever defied the Economic Development Commission. I mean, that's not profiling courage. You've rarely, except for 2020, rarely defied the mayor. Right. Once in a while, a councilor fights the good fight, but that doesn't happen very often. I think you've stepped to the front and done that, in your last 12 months that you've been involved.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Fine. That's fine. How much longer the Citizen Mike show? We got 10 years in the book, almost 11 years. Well, 10 years this fall. So 10 years in the books. What are we, is there?
That gets reassessed every week,
Every week. All right. I feel like I've killed it with these questions. I'm out of questions. So I think you've killed it in a good way. But I mean, I think that let me just say that I think you're not going to say this, so I'll say it. I do think you have influence. I think the counselors mostly watch the show. I don't know if they watch every week, but I think the counselors, both parties, listen to you. And I think and they may not always agree with you, and they listen to you because you give well-reasoned arguments. And I will point to one issue in recent memory, the BMS site, where it was Tom Laffin on your show, who came out and said, I don't think we should be doing this. Now, Tom and I mean, we're friends. I don't know, if did Tom say that knowing what would happen, or did he think, no one watches no one, 10 people watch the show, no one's ever going to go. I don't know. But whatever he thought, he didn't have to say that. And he did say it. And it just so happened, we have our current reporter, Lauren DeCoris, watches the show and stories come out of it. That never happened before. she picked up on it, and it was on the front page of the RJ. And lo and behold, a Republican-led planning and zoning shot down the deal when the Republican vice chair said, I don't know, he was the only counselor who publicly, I'm not going to count Facebook posts, but only counselor who either no one wrote a letter to the editor, and no one did what, he was in the Record Journal, on the record, no pun intended. And that's directly, I give your show credit for that. I think so.
Well, Tom made his own good fortune on that. And I think that comes from when a counselor gets an opportunity to speak from the heart and has public policy first and foremost in his mind, rather than partisan interest.
Mm-hmm.
So Tom did that, on his own, and I give him a lot of credit for it, because a lesser counselor may have thought, geez, I think I want to stay out of this because I don't want to make enemies within my own party or, anything else. So I just wish more counselors would do that. Speak from their heart, have a good basis for it. And even if on that particular issue, maybe the public doesn't agree, the public watching, sees the counselors doing the best they can for the good of the town. I think the public is very forgiving, and they want counselors that will do things like that.
Yeah, well, they, like you said, speak from the heart, and I think you even, recently we had an article about Scott Hanley that I think my quote in the article was from the show.
Yeah.
And Tom did it. It was actually Tom again. Tom tweeted something in this instance.
Yeah.
So it's the Trump method going on Twitter. Yeah. But that's, the world we live in. You had Lauren picking up on the tweet and on the show and saying, hey, there's a story here. So I think that's all good. But I think you had influence on that. And I know that I'll give one more example. Privately, I will publicly say this, you changed my mind on the tax abatement that we gave to the hotel. I think that was a year and a half ago. You and I would talk sporadically. And I remember being on the phone with you, and you were like, why did you vote for that? We talked through it, and I was like, and the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, you're right. And the interesting thing on that one was we got a do-over because of a technicality. And when I flipped, it just ended up dying. It ended up actually, we didn't give the abatement. And then more stuff came out later. I think that I don't know, it never came back is the point. They never brought it back. So, there's an example where you saved the taxpayers, I don't know, $500,000 because you changed my mind after a vote that maybe I got things wrong. So
can we go back to the issue of the park?
Oh God, your show.
No, we're done. It's over. I lost on that one. It's over.
There's no winning. There's no victories and defeats. You said that. It's
well, just going back to something that you said, counselors appearing on the show. If there's a counselor, Republican or Democrat, or a Board of Ed member mm-hmm. that has something to say that is their own original thought, speaking from the heart, whether they agree or disagree with a policy, they'll do well. They'll do well on the show. But if someone is coming on just to give the party line or to sit on the fence, or they really have nothing to offer the viewers, they don't do so well, and the viewers pick that up. So for office holders, present and future, have something to say, and it's worthy and it's well thought out, come on, and the viewers will like that.
I agree. I think that's the final word.
Wrap it up. Again, good luck to you in your future life. Do some traveling, enjoy yourself.
Yeah, was it Tom Sawyer or Huck Finn who went to his own funeral? That's what I'm feeling like here. I'm not going I'm not going anywhere.
Well, we'll have you back. We'll give you the morning. We'll give you the topics. We'll help you script out the answers. So
thank you. Yeah, right. That's what
Let's call it quits.
Sure.
So long, Chris. Thanks everyone for watching. We appreciate it.